Welcome to the I Told You So podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Kohl. I started this podcast because I noticed an erosion of societal discourse and how normal conversations are often fueled by polarization. The I Told You So podcast offers opportunities for healthy discourse and effective debate. I select topics to discuss and debate with guests on the I Told You So podcast. Listeners and guests predict what will happen in the future. I track and announce who predicted accurately when those predictions become true. Discussions and debates can be about any topic and should be focused on what will happen in the future. The podcast offers topics where listeners and guests can discuss and debate with the goal of predicting the future so they can proudly say, I told you so. My guest for this episode is Kristi Straw. Kristi Straw is an innovative leader and visionary with over 20 years of experience shaping the future of Fortune 500 companies. As the founder of Lighthouse Leadership Consultants, she has pioneered transformative approaches like the Insight Method for change management and the MAP framework for future-proofing leadership. Known for her dynamic expertise and compassionate approach, Kristi blends strategic thinking with a rebellious spirit, inspiring teams to embrace mastery, autonomy, and purpose. A strategic mind, rebel at heart, and unicorn in spirit, Kristi continues to redefine the narrative for aspiring leaders and organizations ready to embrace transformative change. We'll have a three-part series. And during our three-part series, we'll talk about future-proof leader, the map to next-gen success, and we'll discuss the evolution of leadership in our first segment. So in this first segment, let's talk about that evolution of leadership, Kristi. I do want to thank you for joining me today. So let's start with this question. Kristi, with your extensive background in transforming Fortune 500 companies, what do you see as the most significant change needed in leadership styles for the next decade?
Hey, good morning, Ben. Thank you very much for having me. It's a great question and one that is likely at the forefront of most people's minds, especially leaders in any type of industry or organization where they're going to need to adapt their leadership styles and their workplace for the younger generations quickly approaching. I would tell you that it's not my opinion, actually, that emotional quotient or emotional intelligence is what's super important. There's many studies that have recently shown that by the year 2025, 90% of leaders and hiring managers would agree that emotional quotient, emotional intelligence is going to be the top 10 skill set by the year 2025. So it highlights a shift that's more towards social and emotional skills and well-being in the workplace, which, if I'm honest with you, is not something that I've personally experienced or those that I do coaching for and with have generally experienced when reaching the ranks of executive leadership.
All right, so let's think about the, I guess, what you call the MAP framework.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the MAP framework is an adaptation of some really great leadership insights and research done by a wonderful leadership expert, Daniel Pink. Really, the whole genesis of MAP framework is that leaders and individuals of any sort are driven by one of three key drivers, either mastery, autonomy, or purpose. And so what I often speak about and am hired to consult with organizations, financial services and otherwise, really have more to do with how do we stop this revolving door of poor employee engagement and all of the other issues that are plaguing organizations right now. And the answer can be found in the MAP framework. Because all of us are driven by one of those three drivers, mastery, autonomy, or purpose, once we identify what the key driver is in an individual, we can create a curriculum or a learning plan and also better engage with them from a leadership and development standpoint.
That's great. So let's think about this shift from command and control to collaborative leadership.
Yes, absolutely. So this is again another a hot topic of great debate, especially amongst executive leadership ranks. And the reason I keep saying that for those of that mid to senior level leader are because by and large, those are historically going to be roles that are filled by folks in a generation that are quite a bit older than those who are incoming. And so this shift from command and control to collaborative leadership is the fact that we're moving away very quickly from rigid hierarchies. And that's a tough pill to swallow for some, depending on how they were raised naturally and then what their experience was like coming up in the business world. So it's important to think about moving from the rigid hierarchies. A Gallup study actually found that companies, who are highly engaged and have teams that do not have such a rigid hierarchy have 21% greater profitability. Now, on the heels of COVID and the pandemic and all the other things that we've been experiencing as a nation, I would think that a 21% increase in productivity might be reason enough to get our friendly, more maybe stodgy leaders to consider that, the future of the workforce is absolutely not by large hierarchical structures. And it's certainly not by leaders who haven't done their own internal work to be able to lead others in a positive and productive way.
Great thoughts. Let me wrap up by just saying we will have another 2 episodes, so please join in for those. I'm not sure when we will record those, but we will have those to follow up with Kristi on this. She gave some excellent information about the future of leadership and the workplace. And I do want to thank you, Kristi Straw, so much for being a guest on the I Told You So podcast. So, Kristi, if listeners would like to learn more about you and maybe like to follow up with you, how should they contact you? And I think you have maybe a book you're writing or a book that just came out. Maybe you want to talk about that. Maybe get some information about your website and your business.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. And thanks once again. As I mentioned to you, and I'll tell all of your listeners, first podcast ever. So thank you for your kindness, listeners, as you're deciding whether or not you'd like to hear more from me. I will tell you that I have a very long business name. It's Lighthouse Leadership Consultants, and you can find me online at lighthouseleadershipconsultants.com. And yes, we're on about the 30-day countdown. My editor keeps pushing it back, but I'm hopeful that we're on the 30-day countdown for an awesome book coming your way, which is actually called Unicorn Leader. And it is all about leaders who display traits that will future-proof workplaces and organizations.
Great. I can't wait for that. That's going to be great. So, because this podcast is about predicting the future, I have a few questions about this segment with Kristi Straw. And remember, we'll have 2 more segments with her as well. But for this segment, my questions for those about this segment is the evolution of leadership. And the questions are, how do you foresee the role of emotional intelligence evolving in leadership over the next decade? Also, in what ways do you think the balance of MAP, mastery, autonomy, and purpose will shape the future workplace? And how do you predict the shift from command and control to collaborative leadership? And how will that affect organizational success? So those are the questions I'd like you to think about. And really, I really would like you to connect with Kristi and or me about those. Please comment on YouTube or Spotify, or simply send an email message to me. And you can do that at ITYS at BenKohlITYS.com. That's ITYS at BenKohlITYS.com. Or you can call me, or you can send a text message to me, and that's 785-473-3721. Again, that's 785-473-3721. Or you can post on any of my social media channels. Or you can find Kristi on her website and social media channels as well. So if there's another podcast platform that you prefer rather than just YouTube or Spotify, please let me know that too. So go to the I Told You So podcast website at BenKohlITYS.com to connect and get your own I Told You So items. You can choose from shirts, hoodies, hats, mugs, and lots of other items. The I Told You So podcast is a space for healthy discourse and effective debate with the goal of predicting the future so you as a listener can say, I told you so. Also, if your business or organization is interested in advertising on the I Told You So podcast, please let me know. Thanks for tuning in to the I Told You So podcast, and thanks again to my guest, Kristi Straw. Followers of the podcast are very important, so please follow, like, subscribe, comment, give a high rating, and share with your friends. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Kohl, and I hope to hear from you soon.